A sealed letter crosses the harem at midnight, and by dawn an empire has shifted a hair. Topkapi sleeps in pieces, kitchens gone quiet, gardens holding their breath, guards counting heartbeats. Only the lamplit tiles of the harem corridor are awake, blue glaze catching torchlight like captured stars. Footsteps, measured. A eunuch in dark silk. In his hands a letter, tied in ribbon, its wax seal pressed with a curling tugra. Not a lover's scrawl, a sovereign's hand. Tonight the palace hum is different. A rumor rides the stone, the unthinkable. The Padishah, Suleiman, will not simply favor a concubine, he will marry her. In this world, love has protocols. The harem is a machine that turns beauty into heirs and mothers into factions. Concubines bear princes. The Valid Sultan holds the keys. The rule of breath is one mother, one son. Kings don't marry the women who bear their children. They move on, for balance, for safety, for state. And yet, this letter, torch to oil, her name is Hurrem to some, Roxelana to others, the cheerful one. In a palace of measured silence she laughs. In a court of practiced masks, she answers a poet king with wit, not worship. Hundreds live inside these walls. One has rewired the current. Why does forbidden stick to the mind like gold leaf? Because scarcity spikes attention. Secrecy turns each glance into a pledge. The more a rule forbids, the brighter a breaking gleams. A letter at midnight is not just paper, it's proof the game has changed. Make no mistake, this isn't only romance. If a sultan marries a concubine, the map inside the palace shifts. Mothers calculate anew. Viziers revise their whispers. A ring on one hand unbalances a dozen others. Chroniclers will argue over details. Did he wed her in formal ceremony, when, before which witnesses? But all agree on the shock. Custom bends. And when custom bends, careers and bloodlines bend with it. Picture the letter laid on silk in a small guarded room. Picture the woman who will read it, not as a prize, but as a player. The rulebook says the harem feeds the throne. Hürrem reads another line. Sometimes the throne feeds the harem. Picture the letter laid on silk in a small guarded room. Picture the woman who will read it, not as a prize, but as a player. The rulebook says the harem feeds the throne. Hürrem reads another line. Sometimes the throne feeds the harem. Love had protocols, and sultans weren't supposed to marry. Start with the system. The Ottoman palace ran on custom, a choreography that kept love private and power public. At its heart sat the harem, not a pleasure house but a political engine. It raised princes, forged factions, and fed the throne a steady line of heirs. Women here weren't queens by wedding vow. They were concubines, bondswomen elevated by the sultan's choice. If a concubine bore a son, her status jumped. She became the mother of a potential ruler. Above them all stood the Valid Sultan, the sultan's mother, first keyholder, patron, and power broker in chief. When a woman's star rose highest, she could be named Haseki Sultan, chief consort, a title with apartments, stipends, and a voice that carried past curtains. Marriage was not required for any of this. In fact, marriage was exactly what custom tried to avoid. Why avoid it? Because marriage makes families. A married wife brings a natal clan, alliances, obligations, external power that can tug on the palace from outside its walls. The concubinage model kept politics in-house. No new in-laws, no foreign father-in-law with soldiers, no dowry clauses to weaponize in a crisis. Then there was the quiet rule that kept mothers from becoming empires unto themselves. One mother, one son. A favored woman ideally bore a single prince. That way, no brother's full blood could lie behind a powerful mother. Each prince had his mother, his circle, his chances, and the court could balance them like weights on a scale. Once old enough, princes didn't linger under the same roof. They went out to govern provinces, Amasya, Manisa, others, learning rule and building patronage. Their mothers went with them, forming smaller courts that kept the empire's arteries warm and the capital's tensions cooler. Inside this machine, the Valid stabilized the center, the Haseki swayed the sultan, and a rotating cast of concubines prevented any single house from planting a permanent flag. It wasn't romance-free. It was romance managed, which is why the idea of a sultan marrying a concubine jolted the palace. It risked importing outside leverage, elevating inside rivalry, and rewriting succession habits in wet ink. A ring on one finger could tilt the valide Haseki balance, threaten the one mother, one son ethos, and make every prince's posting feel suddenly political in a new way. Here's the psychology that makes this irresistible. Prohibition focuses attention. The more custom whispers don't, the more the court listens for a do. Scarcity, one chosen among many, supercharges intrigue. The forbidden becomes the center of the map. Chroniclers will spar over the paperwork, but everyone felt the break in rhythm. The harem's rulebook said, "Keep love unbound, keep power fluid." Suleiman's path with Hurrem said, "Bind love and watch power coalesce." They named her the cheerful one, and she turned charm into statecraft. Chroniclers disagree on the details, but most trace her beginning to the Ruthenian borderlands, captivity, the caravan, the sea, and finally the palace. A life broken open, then rebuilt behind doors within doors. In the harem, names are keys. A new life needs a new lock. She becomes Hurrem, the cheerful one, the laugh that bends a grim corridor toward light. To foreign tongues, she'll be Roxelana, the woman from the north. Either way, the rumor spreads quickly. She smiles where others swallow their words. Make no mistake, cheer is not naivete. It's a persona, crafted like a jewel. She learns the house language, Turkish in the kitchens, courtly Persian in poetry, the rhythms of deference and the exact points to lean. She laughs with servitors, listens to older women, and remembers the names that other people forget. 1,000 tiny reputations begin to turn in her direction. Nights bring music. The sultan is a poet, muhibi on the page, and the palace hums with lutes and verses. Where others recite, Hurrem answers. Not flattery, play. A quip that lands just shy of insolence, a story bent toward a moral he can admire. The distance between throne and cushion shrinks by a breath. Here's the addiction lever, makeover as power. Each favor is a step up the stairs. A bolt of better fabric for her seamstress, hit. A petition carried for a kitchen boy, hit. A place closer to the musicians, hit. Variable rewards wire attention. The court waits to see what she turns into next, and so does the sultan. She doesn't storm, she accumulates. A small suite of rooms, a better tutor, a parlor where older women like to linger because the tea tastes a little sweeter and the news moves a little faster. Hurrem makes hospitality into a lever. People leave her presence with lighter hands and heavier loyalty. Early bonds show in requests. While the army rides, a letter, affectionate yes, but edged with policy. A widow's son needs placement, a fountain needs repair. A rival's careless word has bruised a servant, see? Suleiman, the poet king, meets someone who can hold affection in one palm and agenda in the other without spilling either. In a palace calibrated to keep love fluid, Hurrem begins to cohere. The smile that looks like warmth is also direction. The joke that looks effortless has aim. She is no storm, she's a current, and the ship has started to turn. In the harem, maternity is a throne. Meet the first queen of this chessboard, Mahidevran. She is the mother of Prince Mustafa, brilliant, disciplined, beloved by soldiers before he has ever led them. In a system that crowns mothers through sons, Mahidevran wears an invisible diadem. If Mustafa rises, she rises with him. Now the newcomer who bends the air when she enters a room, Hurrem. She laughs, she listens, she remembers. And soon she bears sons, and a daughter whose name will echo through alliances, Mihrima. In the harem's math, every new infant is not just a child, it's a vote. Here's the engine under the embroidery, the stakes are zero-sum. The empire prefers one prince at the end of the race, not a handful of brothers hacking the map apart, which means every lullaby contains the softest ambition. One mother's triumph narrows every other mother's road. Chroniclers pass down a story that dramatizes this fault line, the bruise tale. Some sources claim Mahidevran struck Hurrem, leaving marks. Others question the event, its cause, even its existence. Debated. What matters for our story isn't who raised a hand, it's how swiftly the rumor travels and how the court rearranges itself to interpret it. If a mother is seen as immoderate, she risks the sultan's coolness and the Valid sultan's disapproval. If another is seen as long-suffering yet loyal, she gathers sympathy like grain. The harem doesn't fight in the open, it curates narratives. Meanwhile, the princes grow. Mustafa, firstborn favorite to many eyes, Hürrem's sons, Mehmed, Selim, Bayezid, each a fresh center of gravity, and Mihrima, the daughter who will one day hold politics in her palm through marriages and patronage. The nursery is a map. Every cradle pins a province. Here's the addiction loop that keeps courtiers from sleeping. Rivalry, threat, maneuver, reprieve. A whisper about protocol, a repositioned attendant, a gift to a shrine, a smile well-timed in the sultan's line of sight. The next day brings a counter, an audience granted, a poem answered, a place at a feast closer to the fire. No duel, just distance measured and remeasured. Mahidevran has history and a son with glittering promise. Hurrem has momentum, and increasingly access. Each lever she pulls is small, a favor, a kindness, a petition for a widow. Yet each returns as reputation. The court begins to phrase sentences differently. Mustafa will be a fine ruler and Hurrem's counsel is heard. Two truths braided, tightening. Understand, none of this is merely personal. When mothers circle each other, the empire leans. Supply lines, appointments, postings, each can tilt when a mother's star warms or cools. The harem is not behind the state. It is inside it. He wrote as a poet, she answered as a strategist. Every spring the empire moved. Banners on the roads, drums on the dawn air. Campaign season pulled Suleiman from Topkapı toward borders that kept reshaping themselves. When the tents rose like a city of cloth, another city rose on paper, letters. Between a traveling sovereign and a woman who had learned the palace like a language, ink became the corridor no guard could block. Suleiman signed some verses Muhibi, the lover. The poet king wrote in a current of longing and order. The scent of a room, the ache of absence, a line that folds from moonlight to logistics without breaking. Campaign ledgers by day, couplets by night. Hurrem's replies carried two temperatures. The first was affection, a voice that warmed the tent walls from leagues away. Health wished, dreams described, the small theater of daily life turned to honey. The second temperature was policy, requests tucked into tenderness with the neatness of a folded edge. A widow's petition, a fountain in need of repair, a steward whose arrogance hummed like a gnat, a reminder that a certain prince's posting would plant better roots in this province, not that one. This is the addiction lever, the epistolary drip. Every message lands like a hit, variable reward that keeps attention lit. Some nights bring a poem, some bring a decision, some bring both in the same paragraph. He learns to expect her asks laced with endearments. She learns to expect his yes, braided to limits. The distance between musk of ink and stamp of law collapses. Chroniclers preserve fragments, not full transcripts, but the pattern is clear. Intimacy carried information. She praises the charity kitchens he funds and slides in a plan for a vakif that will bear her name. She delights in a verse and nudges an appointment for a man who has proven steady when others shook. He answers with a couplet, and a tugra beneath that moves money, rank, or road crews. The court watches the mail the way gamblers watch dice. A day with two couriers means some faction smiled. A day with none means someone waits in the dark. Letters become weather. A brisk wind favors one gallery, still air gathers in another. And always the tone. Hurrem rarely pleads, she frames. What serves the Sultan's glory serves the home front. What steadies household steadies kingdoms. She learned early that love is a weak lever, shared purpose moves heavier stones. He writes as Muhibi to the woman he misses. He reads as Suleiman to the counselor he trusts. In a palace designed to keep love fluid, letters made it load-bearing. Affection traveled outward. Orders traveled back. A partnership took shape in paragraphs, the kind that can change a budget line, a city's skyline, a prince's road. A sultan puts on a ring. and Ottoman custom loses its anchor. Chroniclers disagree on the year and the ceremony's exact shape, but the message rang clear. Suleiman married Hurrem. In a palace built on concubinage, a formal union was rare enough to feel like thunder. The harem's rulebook, love unwed, power fluid, suddenly had a page written in ink. Before the ring, a favored consort could still be the son of a season. With the ring, Hurrem became Haseki Sultan, chief consort with status that traveled beyond mood. Apartments, stipends, an official voice, position, not just favor. In a system designed to avoid wives and their natal clans, this was a deliberate exception. One ritual collapsed many rules. The shockwaves started at home. Factions recalculated. A vizier who had invested in other corridors now studied the Hasekis. Chamberlains rehearsed new greetings. The Valid Sultan still held the prime key, but the balance shifted. Mother of the reigning sultan on one side, wife of the reigning sultan on the other. 2 poles, 1 compass. Further out, succession habits felt the tilt. The ethos of one mother, one son, useful for preventing full brother blocks, met a woman whose multiple sons now stood under a formal canopy. Mehmed, Selim, Bayezid, each a center of gravity, and watching from provincial command, the firstborn Mustafa, favored by soldiers, loved by many, saw the weather change. The city heard jubilation and whispers in equal measure. To some, marriage made sense of a bond already shaping policy. Legitimacy crowned affection. To others, it imported risk. Wives can grow houses, houses grow leverage, leverage tugs at the state. In a machine designed to keep politics in-house, a wedding ring felt like inviting the world inside. Here's the addiction lever, the power rush of precedent. One act, dozens of downstream effects. A stipend increased here, hit. An audience widened there, hit. A petition stamped faster, a rival's corridor quieted. A vakaf endowed under the Haseki's name. Intrigue runs on variable rewards. The ring turned the tap. Diplomats took notes. If the Sultan could marry a consort, perhaps her letters carried new weight. Perhaps gifts routed through her would travel faster. The palace became a board where etiquette was policy, where Hurrem sat, who carried her messages, which prince's tutor received fresh books, all signals. Was this love dressed as law, or law refitted by love? In practice, it was both. The ceremony, however staged, told every watcher that private became public. The harem was no longer only the throne's supply line, it was the partner at the table. Palace chess, save your king, sacrifice a piece. Before he was a title, he was a friend. Ibrahim Pasha, a companion whose counsel Suleiman trusted at the table, on the march, and under the lantern at midnight. His rise was a rope pulled hand over hand, chamberlain, commander, grand vizier. He spoke plainly where others rehearsed. The Sultan listened. The court adjusted to his gravity. Marrying a princess, Haseki Sultan Suleiman's sister, made Ibrahim kin, not just servant. Doors opened before he reached them. Petitions wore his name like a pass. At banquets, his cushion edged closer to the fire, and yet in palaces, altitude courts, crosswinds. Rumors gathered the way dew does, quietly, everywhere at once. Some whispered he signed himself too boldly, others that he built too grand, praised too freely, forgot the line between Sultan's right hand and second son. Still others pointed outward, envoys aggrieved, accounts strained, factions jealous. Which rumor matters? In practice, all of them. Around Hurrem, alliances began to reshuffle, not because she struck, but because power pivots to stability. A chamberlain who once waited 2 hours for Ibrahim's nod now found the Haseki's corridor shorter. A petitioner learned that a letter routed through Hurrem's women traveled faster than a boast in the vizier's hall. No proclamations, just footsteps that chose different floors. This is the addiction lever of palace intrigue, the one more move compulsion. Ibrahim secures a treaty, hit. A rival places a nephew, hit. Hurrem strengthens a friendship with a soft loan and a steady eye, hit. Each micro-victory invites the next. The board hums. No single piece wins the game, the sequence does. Then the banquet people still talk about music, praise, toasts. What was said? Sources diverge. What followed? By dawn, his chair was empty. The record writes the rest with few words and no decoration. The fallen favorite left the stage he had once arranged. Who bears blame? Chroniclers disagree, and we won't assign it. Some point to rival viziers, others to strained coffers, others to lines crossed in title and tone. Still others to whispering from galleries that preferred a steadier center of gravity. In empires, decisions arrive with many footprints and a single signature. After Ibrahim, the palace rebalanced. Men who had hovered at the threshold stepped forward. A new network took shape around the Haseki. Careful, service-minded, quietly durable. The message was not vengeance, it was velocity. Policy needs traction. Households need confidence. The Sultan needs a table that doesn't wobble. Court life promises safety to no one, not even favorites. Its only promise is movement. Save your king, sacrifice a piece, play again. Marry your allies, mint your future. In palaces, love is a feeling. Network is a plan. Hurrem's plan begins with a daughter, Merimah, sharp-eyed, well-taught, the kind of presence that stills a room by entering it. A princess can be ceremony, or placed well, she can be infrastructure. Enter Rustem, not born to a signet ring, he earned it. Governor, commander, careful with coin, colder still with corruption. The court first sees competence, Hurrem sees continuity. A son-in-law, yes, but also a statesman whose habits can steady a table that politics loves to wobble. Their alliance is more than a wedding, it's a hinge. Mihrimah's marriage to Rustem Pasha binds household to cabinet, nursery to council. Messages don't just move, they stay moved. When decisions need a spine, a family line now runs through the spine of the state. And then, the public face of private power. Vakuf, charitable endowments that turn affection into legitimacy. Under Hurrem's name rises the Haseki complex. Mosque, soup kitchen, clinic, school. Stone and soup say what letters cannot. This love feeds people. The kitchens ladle more than broth, they ladle reputation into bowls, one steady ladle at a time. Watch the feedback loop. Appointment, hit. Donation, hit. A road repaired under Rustem's eye, hit. Lamps lit for evening prayer in a complex that bears the Haseki name, hit. Variable rewards keep the court's attention high. Every week offers a new signal that this household does more than whisper. It builds. Mihrimah is not decoration. She writes, hosts, remembers. A widow from a former campaign town arrives. The princess turns audience into outcome. A scholar lacks books, a chest appears. A provincial imam needs a roof. A vakuf budget flexes. People leave her rooms with lighter problems and heavier loyalty. Meanwhile, Rustem learns the palace rhythm the way sailors learn currents. Feel for the pull, trim the sails, keep the ship off the rocks. He signs no sentence he can't defend. He spends no coin twice. Where others roar, he absorbs. Where others angle for spectacle, he prefers yield that accumulates. None of this erases risk, it redistributes it. Factions notice when roads reroute through the Haseki's court. Some applaud the order, others count the costs. But charity complicates opposition. It's hard to sneer at a bread line that keeps a winter gentle. This is intrigue at its most compelling, not scandal but structure. Each appointment and endowment lands like a pulse. The board doesn't spin. It settles, square by square, in their favor. When power plays reach the field, they redraw bloodlines. Prince Mustafa was more than a name in a ledger. He was the soldier's favorite. Disciplined, able, the kind of commander men imagined following into a storm. In the gossip loops of camps and barracks, his shadow walked tall. Mothers in the harem counted futures. Out here, janissaries counted odds. Then came a campaign season hot with rumor. Borders shifted, letters traveled, so did whispers, accusations of ambition, hints of intrigue, cautions from counselors, counters from loyalists. Chroniclers disagree on who said what, when, whether envoys stoked fears, whether rivals fanned sparks, whether prudence tipped into paranoia. What they agree on is the shape of the tension, a circle tightening. The order went out. The prince would enter his father's tent. A sovereign's summons is a ritual, so is its choreography. Curtains, guards, the hush that eats sound. Mustafa stepped inside carrying the weight of a lifetime's training, protocols carved into bone. What happened next is told in tones that still crack. The execution, swift, deliberate, carried out by palace mute stranglers as the law prescribed for treason. Was it justice? Prevention? Betrayal? Chroniclers disagree. We won't assign blame, we will mark the shock. A prince favored by the core, gone. Outside, the air turned heavy. The Janissaries, who had loved Mustafa as potential and banner, murmured, then fell into the grim discipline that armies use when they have no better tool than silence. Some accounts describe unrest, others a taut, stunned obedience. Either way, the army moved again because empires cannot afford to stop. In the court, aftershocks rolled. Rustem Pasha, the steady son-in-law, the statesman, was brushed by the storm winds, removed, then later returned, as factions sought a temperature the palace could bear. Mahidevran, Mustafa's mother, entered history with a grief that needs no footnote. Hürrem's household, her sons, her allies, felt the ground tilt under a victory that cost too much to celebrate. Here is the addiction lever at its darkest, the catastrophic climax. Intrigue promises small wins, an audience, a title, a seat, until the bill comes due in a currency no one meant to spend. The court had chased one more move until the board demanded a piece no one wanted to give. Aftermath moved in three directions. In the core, loyalty resoldered to the throne because that is what armies must do. In the provinces, messages sped to governors who recalculated which prince's star would guide their road. In the capital, policy found a new center of gravity around the Haseki's network. Not celebration, but consolidation. The bow lies where it fell. The map redraws itself by a hair, then another, then a league. Men who muttered yesterday speak carefully today. Kitchens ladle soup. Endowments light lamps. Life resumes its rituals to cover what cannot be undone. From private rooms to public policy. By now, everyone in Istanbul understands a simple truth. Letters that begin with affection can end with orders. Hurrem writes outward, not only to governors and stewards, but beyond the Bosphorus, to courts that watch the crescent's shadow. Chroniclers preserve her diplomatic letters to the Polish-Lithuanian world, courtesies wrapped around counsel, a softer sleeve for the Sultan's steel. She praises peace like a mother blesses a sleeping child, and lays out why it is cheaper than war. It isn't only words. The empire learns to wield charity as soft power. Under Hurrem's name, Vakıf endowments multiply. The Haseki complex in the capital, kitchens that steam through winter, clinics where the poor find balm. Farther out, foundations dot holy cities and crossroads. Stone turns sentiment into policy. A hungry city is fickle, a fed city is loyal. Meanwhile, the quiet clock of succession keeps time. The path that Intrigue paved now leads to Selim II, one of Hürrem's sons, ascending after Suleiman's long reign. Whatever one thinks of princes and their merits, the result is clear. The household Hürrem built has continuity at the top, and with a new sultan comes a new center of gravity. Campaign tents still rise, but decision-making tilts ever more toward Istanbul, its council rooms, its treasuries, its harem, its kitchens that hum like a second bureaucracy. What starts as romance reprograms institutions. Courtiers read seating charts like treaties. A Haseki's audience schedule can move a provincial road crew. A princess's marriage, Mihrima, threads cabinet to family. Rustem Pasha's ledgers teach the empire that predictability is a weapon more humane and often more effective than spectacle. Etiquette becomes infrastructure. And then the phrase that future centuries will coin, looking back at this threshold, the Sultanate of women. Not queens by wedding crown, but valid, Haseki, princesses with pens, purses, and patronage. Women who can slow a riot with bread, avert a crisis with credit, soothe an envoy with a gift that arrives precisely on time. It is not a coup. It's a gradient. Power that flows where competence and access make a channel. Here's the jolt that keeps viewers leaning forward. The realization. Intrigue wasn't just flirtation under lanterns. It changed the operating system. Who signs, who spends, who speaks, who feeds. Each appointment and endowment landed like a little pulse. Together they rewired the heart. If the empire is a body, love thickened its blood. Letters carried the oxygen. Charity warmed the extremities. Succession set the gate. And the mind? In these years, it often wore a veil. Love ends, its architecture remains. Hurrem is gone, carried out beneath veils and prayers, yet the palace still moves to steps she taught it. The rooms remember the voice that arranged them. The paper remembers the hand that warmed it with requests and endowments. Suleiman, now a widower and a legend in the same body, walks his gardens like a man inside a map he drew with someone else. In these late reign years, the Sultan's world narrows to counsel, campaign, and remembrance. He writes as a poet to quiet the rooms. He rules as an emperor to quiet the frontiers. The laughter that once braided policy to pillow is silence now, and silence is heavy. But policy doesn't die with a person, it copies. The model Hurrem built, letters outward, vacant foundations at home, appointments threaded through family, becomes a template. Future Validi sultans and Hasekis inherit not only apartments but methods, pens that travel to courts abroad, purses that warm the city's cold corners, audiences that solve small problems before they become large ones. This is the Sultanate of women maturing, less a coup than a continuum. A mother can steady a council by steadying a market. A consort can buy peace with a roof beam and a loan paid on time. The machine learns a new gear. Charity as statecraft, etiquette as infrastructure. What was gained? A capital that thinks with both sides of the palace, the council chamber and the women's court, softer tools for hard seasons, a city remembered for soup, schooling, and stone. A succession that points to Selim the Set, proof that a household can build a bridge all the way to a throne. And what was broken? The old balance of one mother, one son, cracked under precedent, factions sharpened. The cost of winning wrote itself in darker ink. Mustafa's absence is a hollow you can hear if you stand still long enough. Suspicion learned the corridors as well as loyalty did. Some doors opened forever, some will never fully close. This is the post-thrill pulse, living with the consequences. The rush of letters and rings has faded, but the echo continues. Each morning the kitchens feed. Each evening a lamp is lit in a complex that says we remember. Intrigue once paid out in audiences and favors. Now it pays out in maintenance, keeping what was made from coming undone. Suleiman will outlive her by years and miles, carrying a quiet companionship made of absence. He leaves the garden for the field again because empires need motion more than men need endings. Yet everywhere he goes, he walks through Hurrem's shadow, etched in mosques, kitchens, and the practiced routes of messengers who know which rooms matter. We don't live in Topkapı, but we live for the same loop. Intrigue is a variable reward engine. That's why palace stories hook us, and why your notifications do too. The brain lights up for patterns that pay out sometimes, not always. Letters in silk once arrived without warning. Now it's a ping. Either way, we lean forward. Start with scarcity, one chosen among many. In the harem, selection meant oxygen, the single smile that moved a woman 2 doors inward. Today, it's the text that jumps the queue, the meeting invitation with 5 names, and yours in bold. Scarcity turns attention into focus. Focus feels like fate. Then secrecy. Hurrem's midnight letters, private audiences, curtains that parted for one, modern life swaps them for encrypted chats, back-channel DMs, can we talk? On a walk. Secrecy codes intimacy. It whispers that what happens here matters more because not everyone sees it. Add social proof. Yesterday it was titles, ceremonies, seats near the brazier. Today it's job titles, blue checks, wedding photos, board invites. When a room nods, we borrow its confidence. That's why a ring on Hurrem's finger wasn't just love, it was signal. Finally playing the system, rules bent, not broken. Hurrem learned calendars, corridors, and the art of the ask. You learn HR policies, email timing, and the difference between looping in and putting on blast. Strategy turns chance into trajectory. What does she teach today's heart? Boundaries. Keep your trousseau, your time, energy, access, until values align. Boundaries aren't walls, they're gates with good keys. Leverage. Hürrem paired affection with outcomes. You can pair care with clarity. Here's what I need to feel safe. Here's the plan that honors us both. Leverage isn't pressure. It's self-respect with receipts. Reputation. She curated context, guests, rooms, routes. You curate settings. Meet where you think well. Share where you're proud to be seen. Let your choices accumulate into a name that walks into rooms before you do. And the warning label, Intrigue charges interest. The rush of one more message, one more move, tempts us to keep playing when the stakes have shifted. Hurrem's world learned the cost in a tense silence and a missing prince. Ours learns it in burned bridges, thin sleep, inboxes that hum like beehives. The reason we can't look away isn't gossip. It's design. Scarcity tightens focus. Secrecy sweetens risk. Social proof crowns the moment. Strategy promises the next hit. Palace, workplace, group chat, the loop is the same. So take the lesson the story keeps offering. Let love be a practice, not a loophole. Build kitchens, not just kisses, habits that feed futures. And when you play the game, play kind, play clear, and know when to stop. Your turn. Which move felt most shocking or most relatable? Tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing this map fill in. If this series gave you a new lens, like and subscribe. Next week, a new court, a new century, the same human heart.